Hi to the folks joining up. We're getting a few viewers, so I don't know how many folks are joining. My screen is getting pixelated on and off, so I'm not sure what's up with my connection. Sometimes it's fine, sometimes it's not. Wasn't doing that before, but hopefully it'll cooperate. Oops. Let's see. I'm getting a message to. Okay, I had to answer a couple of questions. All right, so I think we can go ahead and get started. I think some folks will join us as we go, and some folks may just watch later, which is fine. And I may have to kind of also answer some questions that pop up on my Facebook page with people trying to find it. But thanks everybody, and thanks Seth for being here. I know it's a nice summer evening, and thanks for tuning in. I appreciate it. For those who know me, or for those who don't know me, my name is Sonia LeClaire. I do some coaching, but I also work under the name The Reluctant Enthusiast. That's my website is thereluctantenthusiast.com, and my work revolves around using the outdoors as a springboard for improving physical and mental health and living your own version of a rich and meaningful life. And this is the kickoff for my 4-part summer safety series. And tonight we're going to be talking with Seth. Next week we're going to be doing hiking with dogs. August 9th, I believe, we're going to be talking to Conservation Officer Eric Hannett around wildlife encounters. And the last one will be, I believe, with Officer Hannett again, around to carry or not to carry firearms. So that'll be around the middle or end of August. So they're all free and online here on Facebook Live. So I hope you'll be able to join them all. It's all around keeping yourself safe outdoors, of course, to get the most benefit out of the outdoors. So without further ado, I have Seth Shamp here from Triangle Jiu Jitsu in Durham. And he has a black belt under Royce Gracie, I believe, who is, I think, the top name in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and over 15 years experience in the sport. And one of his passions is working with women and helping them feel safer in their own space, and actually giving them tools that they can use, which is a point we'll make later on as well when we're talking about some of the red flags when it comes to self-defense and women's self-defense in particular. And as a side note, I've known Seth for over 20 years, back into middle school and high school days. So thanks, Seth, for joining us. I really appreciate your time. And if you just talk a little bit before I jump into some introduction into the topic, if you could just talk a little bit about yourself and kind of what you do there and jiu-jitsu.
Sure. Thank you guys all for joining us this evening, and thank you, Sonia, for putting this together. I also have Shayla here with me. She's one of my top students, and she's going to be helping me out in a little bit, and also offering some perspective from a lady's perspective if there are any questions like that. But yeah, I teach martial arts. I teach Brazilian, specifically Gracie Jiu-Jitsu under my instructor, the Gracie family, who is a real approach to staying safe. I own and operate my academy here in Durham, North Carolina. But like Sonia said, I do try as much as possible to get into the community, teaching self-defense seminars at different sororities on campuses around here. I also have 2 daughters myself. And so one of the things that I am sort of passionate about is trying to give women an opportunity to stay safe when they're out there in the world, which can be sometimes an unsafe place to be, and believe that jiu-jitsu probably has the best opportunity to provide the most realistic forms of self-defense if you're willing to put in the time and spend some time devoting to that. So I'm happy to be a part of this. It's one of the things I look forward to doing, and I appreciate the opportunity opportunity to talk to you guys this evening.
Great. Thank you very much. And like I said, we're happy to have you here and your expertise. So before we jumped into some of the more specifics around the defense, I just wanted to take a step back in terms of talking about some of the perception and the reality of our safety outdoors. Because when it comes to especially women spending time outdoors, one of the things that we often hear is, oh my gosh, what are you doing? It's almost as though women are getting nabbed left and right outside. And the reality is that that's not quite the case. And it's not the case at all, in fact. And one of the downsides is that there's not a lot of collective outdoor crime statistics, at least when it comes to violent crime. But one of the Department of the Interior does keep statistics with the National Park Service. And the National Park Service in 2014 recorded 293 million visits. And of those, 360 were violent crimes. Or there were only 360 violent crimes and 16 murders. So, of course, those aren't great statistics. No one wants to be in that crowd, but 293 million visits, 16 murders. Of course, we can't disentangle whether there were, domestic disputes in that as well. So the reality is the random person is going to come from behind a tree and grab you. It's a very rare and pretty unique event, even if the media or the people around you make it feel as though it's happening left and right. So, but it's still something that we fear. It's still a possibility, no matter how rare it may be. And like Seth and I talked about the other night, it's one of those things where it's better to have a skill that you hope you never use or never need to use than to need a skill and in that moment and to not have it. So that's why we're talking about that tonight. And one of the first pieces of self-defense, kind of jumping into the details, is, a lot of people, Seth, when they think about self-defense, they're thinking about, all right, we're going to learn punching and kicking and poking people's eyes out. But really, situational awareness is one of the first things that you teach. And so kind of a two-part question. What can you talk about? One, why is that such an important part of what you teach? And second, what are the components of situational awareness? Oh. Okay.
All right. So I'm using an earbud here, but can you hear me and see me okay?
Yes.
All right. So I'm going to try to start where I was at. Sorry, everybody, about that. I'm not exactly sure what happened, but we'll start over again. I'm going to pick it right up with situational awareness. Okay.
Yes.
All right. So when it comes to self-defense, situational awareness is by far and away the most important tool that we teach. In every workshop, in every class, every seminar that I teach, I start with that concept, because if you're talking about the ability to stay safe, then avoidance is by far and away the highest percentage way to stay safe. And avoidance happens when you see it coming. And so when I'm talking to people about walking, not just in the woods, not just hiking, but just walking down the street, having your nose in your phone really can sometimes impede your ability to understand what's around you. So the first step is always going to be situational awareness. That might mean head checking. And that kind of brings us to something you and I were talking about, Sonia, about hiking with earbuds in and hiking with headphones and music. And certainly I know myself when I'm exercising or running, I like to have music going, but it can impede your ability to know what's going on around you, or at least even be in tune with what's going on around you. But yeah, when we talk about situational awareness, it gives you the opportunity to see it coming. And if you can see it coming, then you can do the second most important part of self-defense, which is distance management. Understanding how to stay far enough away from certain threats. But if you can't even understand what is a potential threat or see a potential threat coming, then it's just hard, and you're giving yourself an uphill battle to deal with that threat when you encounter it. So I preach situational awareness. I try to encourage people to be, head checking
when they're walking, just knowing every now and then what's around you, knowing where you're at on the trail as well. If you have, you know, a steep drop off of your hiking switchbacks up and down, or knowing which way is the closest place to help, knowing where ranger stations are, where other hikers might be. If you know, hear somebody on the trail, or if you know that there's a group of people hiking up in front of you, having an idea of where people are and where you are in the world or in the woods or out in nature is by far and away the first and most important step to staying safe.
Yeah, those are great. And I think the earbuds is a really important piece, because I do see people on the trails, trail running, sometimes even hiking with those in. And it's always sort of one of my pet peeves, because I know it's a dangerous thing to do for a lot of reasons. And one of them is other people. It's going to make you an easy victim. But it's also, you know, for people who are just being courteous, getting out of the way. And we'll also talk about it when it comes to encounters with wildlife, because wildlife will give you audible cues to back off, get out of the way. And if you can't hear that, or trees falling, you know, those things can keep you safe. And if you're not cued in to what's happening around you, you can put yourself in a tough spot. But it's certainly,
yeah, it's not even just wildlife, like you said, with trees, or if you're in certain parts of the country where flash flooding is a huge problem. I mean, not to, you know, be all, you know, current event-y, but those kids in Thailand, you know, yeah, that was the reason they got stuck, was a huge flash flood came down an hour after they were exploring these caves. And if understanding when the rain is falling, or when thunder is happening, or when a storm is afoot, you can't really do that with earbuds. And not just, you know, the dangers of wildlife from people, but nature as well. It's a great point.
Yeah. So if you do wear earbuds while you're hiking, and I know some people do that when they're backpacking or doing long distance trips, just be aware it's not it's not helpful for you when it comes to situational awareness. So it's definitely not something that we recommend when it comes to personal safety. So are there components of situational awareness that you specifically talk to your students about, or oh, there you are.
Lost you. Yeah, went away for a second.
That are components of it that you specifically talk about. You also talked about distance management. Are there certain components that you talk to them about?
Yeah, I kind of look at situational awareness almost like it's maybe a little cliched about like a traffic light. We look at like a green light, yellow light, and red light situations, and those are really how we sort of define it. So a green light situation is understanding what's around you and really observing and feeling no potential threats at all. You know, you're in the woods, everything seems fine, the weather seems fine, you're in a space that you understand, and you haven't encountered anybody or anything that would give you cause, or give you pause, I should say. A yellow light situation is that moment when you are feeling something inside you. You've recognized something, you've observed something, you're aware of something. You might be relaxed, but you're still alert. Now that could just be encountering someone along the trail who's a little talkative, right? You could maybe be crossing paths with someone, and now they're just striking up a conversation with you, which is maybe perfectly innocent, that they just want to say, hey, you know, up there is really beautiful, or over there the trail's closed, or whatever it might be. But when you get to that yellow light situation of this person's maybe a little too talkative, or maybe they're trying to walk with you, or maybe now they're trying to join you in your group, those are times where you're going to at least start to be more aware of things like exit strategies and which way you might be exiting. If you ever find yourself in that yellow light situation, it's really important to understand your exits, your routes out. And these are the components of self-defense that we focus on that kind of are contrary to some of the stuff that exists out there that we'll talk about a little bit later, because we're not in a position to fight. We're not in a position to like beat anybody up or choke anybody out. That takes a whole different world of training and dedication. What we're trying to do is get away. We're trying to have an ability to move on, find a space to go away. And so knowing when you're in that yellow light situation, your exit strategies, where the nearest help is. And that's a component of distance management. When we say distance management, we want to make as much distance and space between those threats, but also close the distance between help and safety and someone who might be able to help you. So that situational awareness might be something like, okay, my exit is that way. Let me not let this threat stand in between me and this threat. So if you were walking on a trail and you encountered somebody and they were very talkative, and you recognized that, you know, the closest place is maybe on the other side of this person. The next group that's hiking, maybe your car, maybe someone that you encountered a little while ago, whatever it is, the next closest place to get help, your exit, is on the other side of this person that's giving you a yellow light feeling. Then you might try to casually circle around to the other side of that person, so that now they're not in between you and your strategy, or you and your safety, or you and your help. And that's just, you really only do that if you understand the situation that you're in and you're aware of it. Again, not trying to fight this person. You're not trying to, do anything like punch them in the face or gouge their eyes out. You're just trying to put yourself in a spot that if it comes to it, you could maybe get away or maybe run and be able to not have to deal with them, be on the other side of them. And that's a component of distance management and situational awareness.
Great.
And I would say also to that end, there's a small detail that maybe people encounter too. If we're going to talk about someone grabbing you and holding you, the less amount of handles they have is important. So if you're in a yellow light situation where you're feeling really uncomfortable, it might be time to unclip your backpack. It might be time to make sure that, that there's nothing that when you turn to run, they can reach and grab, that backpack comes off, and that you're out and you're going. A backpack on you in the woods is a handle, and it's an easier handle than your wrist.
Mm-hmm.
When somebody grabs your wrist, there's some pretty simple things you can do to break that grip. But when they grab a handful of, material, or even literally a handle on a backpack,
mm-hmm.
which is now secured around your body at like a 5-point harness or something like that,
mm-hmm.
now that's a whole other world of fighting to get away from versus just slipping it off your shoulders. So situational awareness includes what this person could potentially do to you and which route you need to go. So when you are in that yellow light situation, you might unclip your backpack, casually, and circle around to the other side. Maybe you're getting a drink of water and you're just kind of casually, not escalating anything, but you're also, putting yourself in a space to quickly get away. And one other thing that sort of, teeters on something we might talk about in a little bit is if you are in that yellow light situation and you do feel uncomfortable, it's important to assert yourself. And, actually, this is something that Shayla has talked to me about before in her experience in life, is that, sometimes when you're in these moments where someone is maybe talking to you too much, maybe you don't like it, that it's perfectly okay and acceptable to just simply look at them and say, no, thank you. You want some company today? Smile at them and just be like, no, I'm all set, and she can expand on that a little bit, but she's told me, a good bit about that kind of idea. If you want to talk a little bit about that.
Having jiu-jitsu training gives you that confidence to stick up for yourself and say, this is uncomfortable for me, and it is 100% okay and my responsibility to let this person know. And it depends on the threat and whether or not a confrontation would escalate the situation. But, even if you're a nice, smiley, happy person and you don't want to hurt anyone's feelings, you can smile and say, no, thank you. Please, I would prefer to walk alone. Goodbye. Yeah.
And that comes with that situational awareness of recognizing, I'm uncomfortable. This is a little more than I want to deal with right now, and I'm going to assert myself in this moment. And I think those are self-defense concepts that people get lost in when they talk about, self-defense, and means, like you said, punching, kicking, choking. No, it means assertiveness. It means understanding where you're at and being able to manage distance and assert yourself sometimes.
And that's a tough one for women, I think, because we're always taught, no, you got to be nice, you got to talk to someone. And sometimes that's a tough game to play with somebody, because sometimes saying no gets you in worse trouble. And sometimes, people don't take the no thank yous very well. And, sometimes you just have to read that situation. But, and maybe, like you said, it's just totally avoiding that person if you can. But sometimes they're the ones who approach you. So it's tough. But it is okay to say, no, I'm good, bye, or just outpace them. If you're a faster walker, or just be a faster walker for a little while if you have to. So do you want to talk a little bit about movements and some of the, I know that you wanted to talk about some caveats, and that's going to build into some things we'll talk about after you talk about movements. But maybe the first question is, are there classic attacker movements that we might anticipate if someone is looking to grab us or cause us some harm.
Yeah, I think that that exactly what you said, grab. Yeah, that's what somebody wants to do. They want to grab. And really understanding that there's only two ways in which somebody grabs you. They grab you with their hands or they grab you with their arms. And sort of understanding those two things is really important. And like we were just talking about a second ago, is that this is not the stuff that we're going to talk about real quickly here is not about, fighting back and winning. We can address what that kind of is about in a minute. It's more about making yourself difficult, making yourself a hard target, making yourself not an easy victim. And that's something that we believe we can impart pretty quickly. There's just a very simple concept that we teach called base battling. And base battling just means if you're going to try to grab me, you're not going to move me. You're not going to take me from wherever I am in this place. I'm going to be able to own where I am. We call that owning our base. And wherever I decide I want to be is where I'm going to stay. And if I am, in somewhat of a populated area, the person is probably trying to move me to a less populated area, off the trail, somewhere else. And I'm going to be able to simply make that difficult. It's, again, not a chance to fight back, overcome, subdue, choke somebody out. That type of, next step stuff just takes years and years of training to actually be able to overcome just large discrepancies of size and strength. And those exist. Attackers aren't attacking people bigger and stronger than them. They're attacking people smaller and weaker than them. And to overcome that size and strength discrepancy just takes a very long time to gain the proficiency in that. But initially, we can talk simply about a concept called dropping in base. And dropping in base is kind of, if you think about how you would act if somebody grabbed you and you wanted to sit down and you just wanted to become completely dead weight. It's kind of like that. It's that kind of dead weight is so much harder to manipulate, move, and carry than something that stiffens up and fights back, even fights back. Like somebody grabs you, if I were to grab Shayla like around the neck or around the chest or around the arms or waist or something like that and try to pick her up, if she stiffened up and tried to punch and kick at me or claw at me, she would actually be easier for me to move because her muscles are getting enacted and they're getting really stiff. Versus if she just tries to put her butt on the ground, if she literally just widens her legs, bends her knees, and acts like she wants to sit down, she becomes almost impossible to pick up. I can show you guys, I can just demonstrate a little bit of what that looks like. And then I can tell you a couple of stories about what we've done to demonstrate this. And then, it's something you can practice and I can kind of describe what we're doing, but we're just going to stand up for a second and take this earbud off and then I'll come right back to it for a second.
Yeah. Seth's tall, so for people who haven't met him in person, he's pretty tall. So.
So I know it looks a little awkward when I can't exactly describe what's happening, but really what she was doing there is when I wrapped my arms around her, she went from being an upright, person to dropping her legs wide, bending her knees. And then when my effort came in to lift, she just relaxed everything. And it acted like she might want to just sit on the ground. And to some people that might seem a little awkward. And I'm going to try to tell you a little bit about maybe the best place to fight from if you have to fight. If you absolutely can't avoid this, okay, and you haven't been training for 5 or 6 years like Shayla has, and someone's trying to pick you up, your best bet is to stay exactly where you are. And if somebody tries to pick you up and you become that dead weight where you literally just sag your body to the ground, the worst case scenario is that you're going to fall on the ground. And if you do fall on the ground, your best bet is to try to put your feet between you and them. That literally means falling to your back and putting your feet up in the air and trying to kick. Just trying to use your legs, which are really strong. Every single one of us has longer legs than our attacker has arms. So when those arms come to you, you can kick. And you just kick. And you just be on your back, kicking as hard as you can. It's a very simple concept, but what we call that the guard. The guard is your legs. And it's the most effective form of being able to fight back is how we use our legs. To become super proficient to the point where you could actually defeat someone and choke them out with your legs, that takes a long time to sort of understand and gain that kind of muscle memory. But right now, when somebody grabs you, if you just drop your legs wide, bend your knees, and act like you want to sit, and anybody that's watching this can ask somebody with them in their family or a friend or whatever to grab them stiff. So they stiffen up like this and just hold their arms at their side, grab them from behind and lock their arms around them and pick them up. And then do the exact same thing. And just pick them off the ground. So you just pick them up and then put them back down. But then the second time you grab them, have them just go dead weight. Just literally slump, widen your legs, bend your knees, and just act like you want to sit. And it's extremely obvious right away which is more difficult. Like, it's not even close. It's a massive difference in how hard it is to move someone when they go dead weight. And like I said, the worst case scenario of going that dead weight is that you do fall to the ground. And so that second step would be, okay, turn to your back, face them with your legs, and kick. This is not the way to, like I keep saying this, but overcome power and defeat. It's literally your best bet at not getting taken from where you are at that moment. You put yourself where you are because you're comfortable where you are. Somebody wants to take you from where you are to someplace else. We're going to battle for that base.
So were her feet planted on the ground and almost dropping into like a wide stance squat almost, and just letting her body fall a little bit when you try to lift her?
That's exactly right. Her feet were planted on the ground. Her legs were wide, her knees. It was almost like she was squatting, doing a squat. But she was just letting her weight hang there. And that made it very difficult. And I think I was telling you is that, like, I've done this a few different times for fun. I was a chaperone of a field trip with my daughters last year, and we were at a little waiting for the buses to pick us up. And some of the kids were talking about, oh, you do jujitsu, and they kind of know jujitsu is like the UFC. And they were like, well, can you show us a move? And I was like, well, I'll show you something. So I had these fourth grade boys, and I pulled my daughter Izzy over in the fourth grade. And I said, okay, come up behind Izzy. And I took the biggest boy that was there, and I said, all right, Izzy, just stand still, pick Izzy up. And so the big boy grabbed her and picked her up off the ground. And then I said, okay, now I'm just going to ask her to drop in base. And so the same boy got behind her, and Izzy just dropped some base, did exactly what I showed Shayla doing there. And the boy couldn't get her off the ground, couldn't get her feet off the ground like he just did. And another boy tried, and another boy tried. And they were all amazed at what this jujitsu, what did you do? How did you do it? And it was literally just the simple mechanics of widening your legs, bending your knees, and acting like you want to sit on the ground. Making yourself dead weight really makes you heavier and more difficult than you would be if you actually tried to claw at them, fight at them, punch, kick, and stiffen up your muscles. And there's a whole seminar that we teach on base battling, but really that's as far maybe as I'm comfortable trying to say in this kind of a setting, like a teaching of a technique. Is just simply own your base, and this is one of the simple ways to do that.
And from there, I guess you're looking for just a way to escape from there, just not being taken somewhere and looking for your opportunity to
I mean, then hopefully the common sense stuff comes in, like you're loud, be loud, scream, yell. You're being heavy, you're being loud, you're falling to the ground, or you're battling for your base and you're screaming, help, leave me alone, go away, back off. You're just screaming at the top of your lungs, hoping that someone hears you. Those kind of ideas, I think, are not necessarily the first thing you think about or what comes to mind, but that's shared by almost all martial arts instructors for self-defense, is to be loud, is to just attract as much attention as you possibly can. I mean, if you're near your car and you're near your keys, I mean, hitting the panic button on your keys is a great idea, to be loud, just drawing attention to you and where you're at, so that this person, and like you said, there's not a ton of statistics, and it's not a ton of, obviously 290 million visits, 300 so odd, attacks. That's a very low percentage of it happening. But the fact is that it does happen. And those people who probably do this, and minus the domestic disputes that we were probably talking about, most of the time, the attackers are looking for, they're opportunistic. They're not looking for fights. They're looking for victims. And if you're just going to be loud, heavy, and difficult, then that's probably your best. It's next to situational awareness. It's probably your best option.
Yeah. At some point, you got to do what you got to do to get out of that situation, especially in some of these places that are really isolated. There may not be anyone to hear you. I mean, some places are busier and busier. So even in some places that feel isolated aren't always as isolated as they seem, but especially this time of year.
Even just something, because what we learn a lot in jiu-jitsu is that our instincts often betray us when it comes to fighting. We're just not wired. Humans in general are just not good fighters. If you look at us versus a grizzly bear or a leopard, like those things are built for fighting, right? Those things are built for doing violent damage to humans. We're not. We don't have strong muscles like that. We don't have sharp claws. We don't have sharp teeth. We don't have, that kind of stuff anymore. We evolved into this creature that uses their brain for a lot of stuff. So we have to kind of use that. So, if you can give yourself the best chance to fight back by just being loud and difficult, hopefully most opportunistic attackers will not look for that victim. And in my line of work, I don't necessarily scour the internet for violent crime, but I do read about scenarios and how they play out. And, I'm encouraged by the scenarios that I read about where a woman was just simply, saying not today, and there was a story about a woman in Seattle who in her head, she kept hearing not today, MFer, over and over again. She kept that phrase just kept going over in her head. And so she just didn't even know what to do. She was just struggled. And she was on the ground and she just kept trying to turn and writhe around. And eventually the guy just gave up and went away, and I read about those stories. And then you read about other stories where the person just, froze. They just froze up and they don't have a chance. And so just giving yourself a chance by being difficult, loud, and maybe obnoxious,
Yeah. And that segues into sort of this last piece that we're going to talk about is that, women tend to be, victims in another way with the women's self-defense, and lots of classes, lots of courses and workshops that are specifically designed and targeted towards women, but it's often kind of over promising and maybe promising some things that it can't deliver, or at the very least making it sound as though you're going to walk out of here with skills that you can use right away, when isn't necessarily the case. So, what are some of the red flags and what are some of the problems with a lot of self-defense classes that you see out there that people need to be aware of? I know we've talked about it a lot, which is why I'm more aware now than I used to be.
Yeah, I think I can kind of just regurgitate some of the conversations we've had, which is understanding that when it comes to women's self-defense, which it's a real cliched thing. It's a real marketing thing now. And I actually just telling you that I found this article the other day that the title of it was just, please stop using the words women's self-defense, like we're sick of it kind of thing. Because it is one kind of misleading in what they're talking about. There's no workshop for women's self-defense. And because it comes down to this balance, and the balance is size and strength discrepancies versus technique. Okay, so if you take a 6 foot tall, 200-pound man and you take a 5 foot tall, 120-pound female, this is the balance. This person is going to do harm and violent things to this person that they can't stop. And with 1 year of training, 2 years of training, 3 years of training, 4 years of training, 5 years of training, you start to balance out what you could actually do against a larger, stronger person. Shayla, for instance, is 5'5", 135 pounds. Okay. She's been training for almost 6 years. I firmly believe, this is not just me, propping her up. I don't think there is a untrained guy on earth that could defeat her in a full on anything goes fight. Like, we're fighting for our life. She's going to choke out, submit, break arms, destroy anybody, because she's put in 6 years of 3 to 4 days a week, sometimes even more, training in this martial art. It's not going to happen in a weekend. It's not going to happen in a month. It's not going to happen in a year. It's literally comes down to this balance that exists between the size and strength discrepancies between two people. And I see it. I've seen it firsthand for myself. I'm a bigger person, but when I first started training, I maybe was able to rely on some of my size and strength to beat someone who might be more skilled than me. So there's someone who has more technique than me, but because I have a little bit of technique and all this size and strength advantage of them, I can defeat them. Does that make sense? And then you find that balance with them. And it's maybe the thing I believe in most about training martial arts is that if you actually want to have an ability to overcome massive size and strength discrepancies, there's no easy way to do it. You have to put in the work. Like the old adage, the only way to coast is downhill. Well, if you reverse engineer that, that means the only way to get anywhere is to pedal and to put in work and put time in to get to some certain spot. So we see these seminars and you see them, you know, that are just offering terrible advice. And they're saying, you know, sign up for our weekend seminar or our 2-hour seminar, and we're going to teach you how to stay safe. And then you see a little, advertisement for it. And you got this woman who's got this giant attacker behind her, grabbing her around the neck. And she says something like, well, look, he has my neck. So let's not focus on what I can't control. Let's focus on what I can control. I can take my hands and I can gouge him in the eye, or I can hit him in the groin, stomp him in the foot. And it's like, no, he's going to be doing equally violent things to you. He's going to be doing them stronger, faster, and more powerful to you. There's no easy way to overcome that.
And you're not going to be able to breathe. Pretty.
No, exactly. When she said don't address that, it's like the exact wrong thing. Shayla will tell you the very first thing we say. If somebody puts their hands around your neck, you grab the thing around your neck. You stop it from getting tighter around your neck. You do the best you can to stop it from getting tighter around your neck. And so we are seeing terrible advice. We're seeing in things that, in my opinion, are going to get people hurt. They're going to falsely empower them. They're going to give them this false sense of security, and then they're going to have someone in their face, and they're going to try some stupid technique. And when they could run away, they could maybe get away. They could maybe make a scene, make it loud, make it, make something to make themselves more difficult. They're going to try to fight. And this person's going to it's going to escalate the confrontation to the point where now this person's doing much more violent things to you, and they have an opportunity because you didn't get away, you didn't make space, you thought you were more tough than you are. And so I'm really anti a lot of that stuff. And so when we do teach a women's self-defense seminar, when I do visit our sorority on campus at Duke or UNC or something like that, I always preface it with like, this is an introduction to jiu-jitsu. I'm going to show you a couple things about base battling, but if you really want to be able to do this, if you really want a chance to fight back, you need to find a reputable academy, and you need to train, for years. You need to, depending on what you want to be able to do. If you're small, if you're 5'2" and you're 105 pounds, then you're going to need to train longer. If you're a 5'10", 180-pound woman, then maybe you have, the balance would happen in a shorter amount of time. But it really is the only tried and true method to being able to defeat someone bigger and stronger than you is jiu-jitsu. And I know I'm unapologetically biased, but it really is the only tried and true way to defeat someone bigger and stronger than you. And it doesn't happen in a weekend, a month, or even a year. It takes years and years to develop.
So what are some tips? What are some tips to finding some, a reputable, jiu-jitsu or, some martial arts instructors out there that, okay, this man or woman knows their stuff and isn't going to lead me down the eye poking route.
I think that the first, the first red flag that you would encounter is anybody that promises to do that. Anybody that tells you we can keep you safe in a week, we can keep you safe in a year, you got to enroll with us and you're going to be fine. I mean, I'm super upfront with every student that comes here. I have a lot of people that come for a lot of different reasons, and you'll have them come. I want to feel safer. I was involved in a really bad relationship, or this really bad thing happened to me, or I just want to feel more confident in my life. And I tell them, like, okay, be ready to feel really uncomfortable and awkward for a long time. We're going to go through a really long, ugly duckling phase where we're going to basically rewire your body to do movements that it doesn't like to do. We're going to ask you to be uncomfortable, and we're going to be upfront with it. I mean, just tonight in my fundamentals class, I spieled for a few minutes at the end of this class when I had like maybe 5 brand new people on the mat, and I spieled about how awkward and uncomfortable this was because I could sense from a couple of the new people that they felt like fish out of water. And so I just stopped the class and I just said, I just want to let everybody know, what we're doing tonight. We're learning how to do this, that, and the other. It feels weird. It feels uncomfortable. But each and every one of us on this mat, and then I looked at around the mat, which had like 30 people on the mat. I said, raise your hand if for the first week of jiu-jitsu you felt like you were in the most awkward. And every single hand went up, including mine. And then I could see these 4 or 5 people at the end of the mat looking at this. I can almost see a sigh of relief in their body language, and that, okay, I'm not alone here. This is awkward. So the first thing is to the red flags to look to avoid, which is anyone who's promising to turn you into a ninja overnight or a superhero overnight. Those are the red flags. the things to look for in the reputable academies, and this is maybe a little, I guess it might be a little bit over technical or something. I can't think of the word, but it's lineage. Lineage in jiu-jitsu specifically is very short. It only goes back 100 years, and it all traces back to my instructor's father. My instructor's Hoist Gracie, his father was Elio Gracie, and he invented this martial art that we do. So if you're looking into jiu-jitsu, your instructor should right away, within 5 seconds, be able to tell you their lineage. So if you walked in, you'd be like, so what is your lineage of jiu-jitsu here? If you asked Shayla, she would be able to be like, Elio Gracie, Hoist Gracie, Seth Shamp, me. And they could just right away trace it down to you. I'm really fortunate that I'm one step removed from the source of this martial art. I say Elio Gracie, Hoist Gracie, me. But there is fake jiu-jitsu out there, and there's people who use the tagline of jiu-jitsu, and then it's not Brazilian or Gracie, it's small circle jiu-jitsu or Japanese jiu-jitsu or whatever jiu-jitsu. Jiu-jitsu is
so if they don't list it, or they seem just kind of then it's,
if they want to avoid the conversation, you definitely know you have a problem. And this is widely understood in the jiu-jitsu circles, is that lineage is probably the most telling thing when you visit a school. If your instructor doesn't, like I have it on my wall. I have a picture of my lineage on my wall tracing it to me. And anybody who asks me, I can tell them right away, and they will recognize the names. And if you are ever at a school asking about jiu-jitsu and they're like, well, I trained in Brazil for a little bit, and then I got my black belt when I was over here, and then this guy over here kind of quit and doesn't train. Nope. That's not legit at all. We know right away.
Or if they're about us, doesn't
Yes.
list it.
Yeah, exactly right. If they're about us on the instructor's bio page doesn't list it, then we have an issue. And I'm just to kind of talk about other martial arts, it's specifically for different reasons and stuff. Jiu-jitsu is anybody can do jiu-jitsu, but the reality is jiu-jitsu is a very kind of close quarter martial art where you're very intimate with your partners. And so there's a lot of people who don't feel very comfortable with that. And so your instructor should be attentive to that. Shayla can tell you probably what her experience was like being a woman who came by herself. She came by herself to jiu-jitsu, and the first day or first week or so, she's asked to have a grown man sitting on top of her stomach, or between her legs or something like that. And if your instructor doesn't in any way kind of understand that is uncomfortable for you, or maybe uncomfortable for a woman, then it's someplace you might want to think about training. When you first started, was it awkward and uncomfortable for the intimacy of it?
It was very strange, but the people and the way people act and in those intimate positions is very telling, and it wasn't uncomfortable.
Yeah, so a good instructor will take into consideration that you're brand new, that you're a woman, and that you're trying to learn to defend yourself. And they won't throw you into the wolves and be like, all right, go partner up with that guy. He's going to get between your legs and you're going to try to get out. No, it's not going to be like that. It would be much more oversight and controlled to bring you along slowly to these comfortable positions that we are working to fight from. But that's one of the things that's great about jiu-jitsu, is that in a real jiu-jitsu academy, it's open training. So, you train, you drill, you might partner up one night with a 50-year-old soccer mom. You might partner up the next night with a pro MMA fighter. You might partner up with a firefighter. You might partner up with a school teacher. And then when you get on the mat and roll, you're going to roll with someone 100 pounds heavier than you, 20 pounds lighter than you, 6 inches taller than you, 30 years younger than you. You're going to it's always open like that. And if the instructor is doing what they should do, that doesn't feel uncomfortable. It doesn't feel awkward. You don't feel unsafe. It's a real, kind of safe, nurturing environment. And those are really the main things to look for. And that's always set by the tone of the instructor. It's set by the culture of the instructor. There's bad jiu-jitsu schools. There's bad people in every profession. There's bad doctors, there's bad coaches, there's bad jiu-jitsu instructors. They are out there just like in every world. And so, listening to and feeling it out, trying different schools. That's the other thing, is that a reputable school, a real school, will let you try some classes free. Nobody's going to make you sign up on the first day. Nobody's going to, make you commit to anything. So you should always be allowed to try different schools. And in my opinion, this isn't shared by everybody, but in my opinion, a good instructor is open to you training at other places and getting experiences with other instructors and schools and academies.
Okay, so, and there was one lineage, and I don't think it's not a lineage, I'm not certain, but that was not so hot.
Yeah,
A little
it's not.
controversial.
Yeah, you're talking about a school. You know, and I
Okay.
didn't know. Yeah, you're talking about a sport jiu-jitsu school out of Maryland.
Oh, okay. So maybe it wasn't an actual lineage then. So
No, it was down the line a ways. I mean, this person's lineage went from him on. So as it trickled down from Elio Gracie through a few different instructors and then got to this one person, his culture became toxic. And then he created a toxic culture beneath him. And it was bad. And there was, you know, sexual abuse. There was a lot of bad things going on in the school. He created a cult-like environment where he had to be called master and all these other things. Yeah. And at one point, literally, there was a mass exodus, like in the middle of the night. He created a culture where this tournament school had like dormitories where people were living there and competing and chasing medals at the highest levels and just all about tournament jiu-jitsu, not self-defense, just the sport side of our jiu-jitsu and winning medals. And the story was huge. This was a few years ago where in the middle of the night, there was a mass exodus from this dormitory where everybody just left and ran because they were scared of him and the people above him. And so, yeah, there's just like that in anywhere, you know, you're going to have bad people. And I think it's really important to just feel it out and see what the environment is. And you can tell right away. You can tell right away when someone's, you know, I don't know if you can tell right away, actually. I shouldn't maybe say that. I say that's why there's usually trial periods in there. But yeah, jiu-jitsu.
Is anyone likely to run into him? I mean, I don't know that he's teaching anymore, or maybe I guess he's in Maryland.
His lineage, his schools are still in existence, but they are only primarily focused in this tournament aspect of jiu-jitsu. They don't even really care about sport or self-defense. They don't really care about any of that. They just want to go out and win tournaments. And so they're out there still. But he himself is certainly the black sheep of our martial arts / sports.
So probably people won't encounter him, so they may not need to know his name then. Yeah. I was only going to mention his name if he was going to be someone they might accidentally encounter, because I wouldn't want to throw anybody to him.
Yeah. And then anybody that's listening to this or watching this that had any questions, I'm open to answering any emails and answering any questions about any of this stuff. I don't know if there's going to be a link to my website on this or whatever, and you could find a way to email me. So if anybody is like, oh, maybe I want to try a jiu-jitsu school or something, please feel free to hit me up, email me, and I can point you in the right direction of things that I know that I'm comfortable with and that I trust certainly around the country.
Okay, thank you. That may be really helpful for some folks. And you know, I know we're coming towards the end, so just to reiterate that, people should not be, well, maybe we'll start from the beginning then. Situational awareness is important. You want to avoid conflict, not create it, or escalate something from the beginning. And it's the base. You probably, no one here, unless you already have martial arts training, and I know there may have been one or two people who watched this who did. Otherwise, your base is your best chance at just being able to be difficult enough that maybe someone's going to give up, or you see an opportunity to just bail and get out of there, or be obnoxious. And maybe unhook yourself, try to be difficult to grab. And when it comes to training, and if you really want to get good at this stuff and beyond just your base, finding a school with someone who's comfortable, who's going to understand that you're not going to be comfortable maybe having a guy on top of you, red flags, or someone who's not going to be a super ninja in the 2-hour workshop, someone who's going to be upfront about their lineage, not try to hide it or not even mention it. Those were the red flags, and that you were open to some questions. I know that was a very quick recap of this past hour, but that I hope captures it for the most part. And I may write up an article about this too and put it on the blog, and may put it on YouTube as well. But
sure.
But thanks everyone for tuning in, and thank you very much, Seth. I really appreciate your expertise. And if people have more questions, they can certainly pass them on to me, and I can pass them onto Seth's. Pass on Seth's information as well. And you can mention your website?
Yeah, it's trianglejiujitsu.com.
And is Triangle Jiu-Jitsu is all one word?
Yep, all one word, Triangle Jiu-Jitsu. And Jiu-Jitsu is spelled JIUJITSU. So trianglejiujitsu.com.
All right. So it's very simple. And if you're in that area, you know,
North Carolina, anywhere around Durham Triangle, please stop by and visit us.
Are you taking new students or?
Oh, always, always, always. Yep.
Okay. So there you go. If you're in that area or folks in that area, then
Send them our way.
stop by and learn from Seth because he knows the stuff. So thanks again, everyone, for tuning in, and join us next week. And again, Seth, thanks so much.
Thank you, Sonia. Have a great day.
All right. Bye-bye, everybody.